Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. And this podcast is one of our special MotoAmerica preview shows, our second as we head into round 3 of the championship. I'm Greg White, and the other guy on the line is Jason Pridmore. Hey, JP.
What's up, G-Dub? How are you today?
Oh, I'm good. Things are going well, and it is Monday. We're recording this podcast, and it's all about MotoAmerica. So
it's race week. Love it.
Oh, I'm excited. And it's local for me. It's a driver for me. When are you coming in town?
Isn't it? Fly in Thursday at some point. I think I fly in Thursday, rip up to the track Friday, and then, be ready to go for the weekend. Excited about it. I think, especially with the 2-day format, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out and what nuances and advantages and disadvantages it adds to the teams. So we'll see.
Now, before we get into all the racing stuff that we want to talk about, let's talk about 2-day events, because this weekend, which is going to be May 4th and 5th, if you're listening to this later on, is MotoAmerica races up Virginia International Raceway in Alton, Virginia. And it's MotoAmerica's first go at a 2-day schedule. So I have the schedule in my hand, Jay. I wanted to talk a little bit about that schedule. So before I do that, though, normally, how do the weekends work?
Well, normally we're out there, we're rolling in on a Thursday and we're ready for first practice Friday. So first, that's the thing. I think having 1 day less is going to, it changes things really when you think about it. It has to change you as a rider a little bit. It has to change you as a team. It'll be interesting to see how teams kind of use it, because I feel like it's a little bit of a disadvantage for some of our smaller teams, like Kyle Wyman's and the Scheibes and some of them. That extra day on the track is really beneficial for them. But then also as a rider, it's really going to teach you that you need to get up to speed quickly. You have the dynamic of if something was to happen in the morning on Saturday, how quickly you can get your bike and things back together if there's any little problems. So, it's going to be interesting to see how people handle it. And, it's going to be a tight schedule, as you know.
Yeah, and here's the way the schedule works. So 8 o'clock in the morning, bikes are on track for Liqui Moly Junior Cup, which is a 25-minute practice. We roll right into EBC Brakes Superbike qualifying practice number 1 at 8:35 a.m. From there, at 9:30, we go. That's a 45-minute session, which is what the sessions have been so far this year. Then we go into Super Sport practice. Then we have Liqui Moly Junior Cup qualifying. That's at 10:15. Then EBC Brakes Superbike qualifier practice number 2, another 45-minute session at 10:50. Super Sport qualifying is going to be 11:45 to 12:15. Then no lunch breaks. That's the big difference, I think. There's no lunch
we don't
break.
have time for lunch breaks, right?
Nope. At 12:30, we go right into Super Pole, which, of course, will be live on MotoAmerica Live Plus. You'll be able to see Super Pole qualifying at 12:30 to 12:45. At 1:10, the Junior Cup race starts, and then we're kind of on schedule. At 2 o'clock, Super Sport race. 2:45 is opening ceremonies. 3 o'clock is going to be our EBC Brakes Superbike class. Then you're going to have Twins Cup practice at 4, Stock 1000 practice at 4:45, and then the two-seater, two-up rides, the Dunlop M4 Suzuki two-seater rides are at 5:30 to 6. So you're talking about bikes on track for 10 solid hours, Jay.
And then good for the fans. Good for the fans if you want to line the fences. Yeah, for sure.
On Sunday, we start a little later. We start at 9:15 with a very similar schedule. No lunch break in there. There is the Dunlop hot pit walk, though, from noon to 12:45. So that's kind of where the lunch break is going to be. And then we start racing at 1:10 for Junior Cup 2, for Super Sport 3. And then you have your Twins Cup race at 4, Stock 1000 race at 4:45. So those classes only get 1 each. So it's going to be a very tightly packed schedule. I'm sure MotoAmerica has planned for some red flags, I hope, because if there are any red flags, which of course we keep our fingers crossed that there are 0.
Hopefully there's none. Yeah, absolutely.
That there's going to be contingencies in there. But I would agree with you on the 2-day schedule. It's something you and I have been through before, but this is the first time for MotoAmerica. So I'm going in there with an open mind. We're going to see. Hopefully it doesn't hurt those smaller teams that don't have as much data from the past, like you're saying, the Scheibes and Kyle Wyman's team, and that they don't have any disasters in the first session, because if that first session of Superbike, if there was a problem, especially with a one bike rule, that could set them back for the entire weekend.
Well, that's just the thing that if I had a second bike sitting there, it probably isn't as big of a deal. But if you have a chain get thrown off the third lap of your practice session and you're stuck out of nowhere, you're essentially missing a session, which you would anyways. But I think that's the hardest part about these 2-day schedules. I'm the same as you. I'm going into it with a completely open mind, hoping that everything goes great. And if we can stick to the schedule, awesome. I think it'll be fine. I do like the fact that there's not a lot of sitting around for the fans. There's not a lot of dead time. In other words, we're there for the track to be used. And I love the fact that the track is going to be used the whole time. It's going to keep people entertained and busy. And I think that if people want to get down to the pits, they'll pick and choose what classes they want to kind of watch going around. So, on the schedule Saturday, if people want to roam the pits and go see some of their favorite riders before the autograph signing Sunday, they'll just have to pick and choose what classes they might not want to watch on the fences on Saturday. But I think that most people will that noon to 12:45 autograph thing on Sunday will be packed, because I think a lot of people on Saturday will stay out and watch all the classes and watch all the racing. So yeah, I'm going into it completely cautiously optimistic that everything's going to be perfect, and hope that we have great weather and that everybody can just, especially keep it up for the morning sessions, because it really can throw a wrench in all the championships for a main contender if they were to have an issue. And that's why, as a rider, I think that you've got to be cautiously aggressive that first session out in the morning to make sure that your setup is halfway close and you're comfortable on it without making any big mistakes the first thing Saturday morning.
Yeah. Now, where does VIR rate for you in terms of racetracks that you've raced on in the U.S.?
I think if you look at the 10 circuits that we go to, it's probably in my top 4 as far as that goes. I really enjoy the area. I love VIR, the track. I think it's a lot of fun. It really offers 2 very distinct type of layouts, because the first part of the track is very flat. You got that really fast kink turn 1 there. You and I have both been joking with our producer John that he's got to go just sit in that kink on the first lap of Superbike practice so that he can just get a real sense of the speed down the straightaway. But then when you go up onto the back part, when you get to, what is it, Greg, like turn 7, I think it is 8, where they go up the hill and they kind of go along the VIR ridge there across the top. And then the last part of the track, the last third of it, is really steep, downhill, technical, fast. I just like everything about VIR. I think it's just a really fun track to ride. I don't hear anybody say anything bad about it. So yeah, for sure, it's in my top 3, top 4 of our series.
Yeah, ticket sales are up too, 25% right now. So if you're in the area within a couple hours, you got to come out and check out VIR. But let's talk about classes, Jay. Let's roll right into EBC Break Superbike class, because so far this season, we've had 4 races over 2 events, the only class that's had that so far. And in this championship, with those races that we've already had 6 different riders stand on the podium. Tony Elias, Cameron Beaubier, Josh Herrin, Matthew Skoltz, JD Beach, Garrett Gerloff. They're all in the top 7 in points. The only one we haven't seen in the top 7 in points on a podium yet, and I say yet, is Jake Lewis, who sits 6th in the points. Now, Tony's got 2 wins. Cameron Beaubier has 1, and Herrin has 1. So in 4 races, 3 different winners. This hasn't been the deepest field in terms of just number of entries. It's not 40 entries in Superbike, but certainly out at the top, and throw in David Anthony. You have to throw in, what Kyle Wyman's effort is right now, what he's trying to do to claw his way, into the top 5. Jake Gagne's hurt, but he's definitely a top 5 kind of rider. It's like everyone says it is, with 3 different race winners, 6 different riders on the podium in 4 races. It's a stacked field. So looking at that, we obviously know what the results were at COTA. Tony won 1, Josh won another one. Cameron Beaubier was on a podium there. Garrett Gerloff got his first podium of the season there. And of course, so it's just Tony, Cameron, Josh, and Garrett. But looking at that, Jason, looking ahead, what are you expecting at VIR? Like you're talking about, very unique racetrack, breaks up very differently, setup critical there as well, and qualifying too, because getting closer to turn 1 in this one can be, if you get caught out at the outside of turn 1, you can get pushed wide and lose a whole heap of positions like that.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point. When you look at the first two rounds, easier place to make passes at Road Atlanta and Coda, both. Like there's very significant places where you can pass. In Atlanta and Coda, you have drafting that comes involved. Believe it or not, drafting here at VIR, it is essential, but it isn't the easiest place to draft and pass, because right as you start getting in the draft of somebody, you have that fast kink, which is six gear flat out. And you have to time it absolutely perfectly to get it right to be able to draft someone. VIR doesn't offer a lot of places to pass, and you have to get very creative with where you want to pass. You have to get very creative with making a plan ahead of where you might want to try to get by somebody. When you have a field as close as our field in MotoAmerica, the hardest part is that everybody kind of breaks the same areas and that kind of thing. So it's not the easiest place to do it. Yes, you can outbreak people, but where you got to look at it, Greg, would be, I think, turn 2, they call it now, the tight right at the end of the front straight. I think that's obviously our primary braking spot. And if you remember watching the races last year, Cameron would get really good runs on Tony going down the straightaway, but turn 2 again lends itself to how Tony rides that Yoshimura Suzuki bike. He gets the bike turned very early, gets it down to the apex and controls apex speed to get out. And Cameron just really didn't have anywhere to try to make that pass. And we've also seen at the top of the hill going into turn 10, where we saw an incident there last year between Heron and Tony, because it gets so narrow up there. It's bumpy. It's difficult to pass up into that little spot. You got the end of the back straightaway that you can try to do some passing. But essentially, passing here, Greg, I think is the hardest part. So you really did hit it on the head when you said if you don't get a good start, you can, or a good qualifying, you can make your days a little bit longer, because trying to pass people through here is going to be difficult.
Yeah. I just have you heard of anyone being able to test? I don't think anyone's been able to test, but I know
Matthew Skoltz. I think Skoltz went up there, didn't he?
Got to test. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was up at VIR a couple days ago. That's right. Yeah. I know there's a track day going on right now, because one of my fraternity brothers is actually up there literally right now riding.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I know Josh Heron's been able to get out on a bike and do some things. And he was supposed to be on the podcast, but we haven't been able to connect. He was supposed to be on this one, but we weren't able to connect. I was curious to find out if the win at Coda, does he feel like, is this the change that he needs in terms of, like, the setup and the good baseline? We talk about a good baseline setting and those types of things. That is this a turning point for him? Or because of the characteristics of Coda versus Road Atlanta and the characteristics of VIR, as we go up and down and do different things, like you're saying, it's a variety track. It throws a ton of stuff at you. Is it the team is still going to be searching for setup and all that type of stuff? So,
nah, those guys have so much knowledge. I think those guys have so much. They have so much history, Greg, at this place. And by this stage, as much testing as Josh has done, I can't really look at somebody like Heron jumping on a Yosh Superbike and thinking of it being anything but a positive. He already knows the racetracks. He already knows the team. They've been testing. They've gone to Atlanta, which has ups and downs. Coda has not a lot of ups and downs, but he's seen enough variety now where that bike should be in a window where it should be plenty accessible for him to go win races.
I know what you're saying, but here's the only thing I want to bring up. This is the last track that we go to where we haven't seen the big tire yet. And you saw the condition of Tony Elias's motorcycle, like how it wobbled the entire time we were there. And I just question whether they're going to have enough information to just come here with a 2-day event, that short, weekend, and have Josh Heron's bike just boom right up front, because they struggled.
I feel like he will be. That in my opinion, I think he'll have no problem. I mean, I think the guy that from myself, there's 2 guys really this weekend that I'm going to be focusing on. Obviously, Garrett Gerloff. When you look at him 7th in the points, you think to yourself, for as fast as he's been, as good as he has been, he's just had a little bit of unluckiness. Like, obviously falling in turn 1 in Atlanta and then the fender coming off were 2 things that were a little bit shocking. And then the start of the third race, second round, third race of the season on Saturday at Coda with the bike not starting, a little bit of a revised schedule there. And the bike didn't want to start after their little short warm up that they did. And so he had to grid last at that one. And then on Sunday, it just didn't seem like he had the pace to get through. He got into a bit of a battle with JD. Once he finally did get through, he started chipping away at the leaders. I'm waiting for that weekend where Garrett just kind of, he's up front. This is his second year. He's been at this track before on this bike. When you look at him being 54 points back in the championship, it doesn't really tell the story of how good he's been. So I think he's going to be somebody to look at. I think Schulte is the other guy. He went fast here before. He's tested here before they went to Atlanta. I think he tested at VIR. And so I think he could be a guy that could be a main player up there with our normal guys.
All right. And you look at those two guys, and I'll keep my eyes on Heron for sure, but also JD Beach. And we've got to send a shout out to JD because he just won his very first American flat track race of his, like pro race of his life in the twins class. Huge accomplishment for him. And I wonder if that feeling, that, the joy, that just the whole momentum coming from flat track into VIR this weekend, just a few days removed from that, is going to propel him to another podium finish. You know what I mean, Jay? Like, I don't know, because we know how it works.
I agree with you. Like, winning breeds winning, right, G-Dub? So
yeah,
and JD knows how to win. And for anybody that watched that race on Fans Choice on Saturday night, it was so good. He rode so well, Greg. He was back basically 3 to 4 seconds from Bauman for most of the race. It looked like Bauman just kind of had that race going, and JD just chipped away. And I think it says a lot about his fitness, his desire to win. First Yamaha to win in 40 years, I think, in dirt track. So I know we're going to have a talk with him later in the week, but there was a lot of positives, and you're right. And that's just going to breed. And if you remember how well the Attack Yamaha went here last year with Heron on board, JD, we will literally see six to seven guys in that lead group. We don't know the condition of Gagne, obviously, right now, but when you think about it, it's you're right that Schultz, Beach, Garrett, Heron, these are all going to be great stories to go up there with Tony and Cameron for sure.
Yeah. I think the short weekend for M4X Star Suzuki's Jake Lewis might hold them back a smidge, because they don't have as much time to get it all sorted out. It might. I'm just saying.
And it could go both ways, though, Greg, because it can also work with you. Like, when you're there, you get into a mindset of like, I got to get up to speed, I got to get going, and you don't have a lot of time to change a lot of stuff. So you would hope that, and it looked like Jake really was starting to kind of chip away at it and get closer to where he needs to be. He gets up to speed quickly, which seems like it's pretty good too. And VIR, I think, will suit him and the bike a lot more than going into Atlanta at the beginning of the year, not really knowing what to expect. Because remember, he had some pretty big problems before the first race in Atlanta. And then going to COTA, which is just a little bit of a coin toss, to be honest with you. It's such a different type of racetrack. And he was able to pull, a couple finishes out of there. So I think he'll be closer at this place as well. So that's what I mean. You could have 7 or 8 guys up at the front.
Before we jump off of Superbike, I'm trying to think if I want to pin you into a corner. I kind of do. Give me 2 winners.
2 winners this weekend. Boy, it's really hard to bet against Tony at a place like this for me, because it's kind of his kind of track. He's going to want to stay at the front, be at the front nearly the whole time. I think you got to kind of go with what you feel, and it's got to be, I could see Cameron winning one race. I feel like if Cameron gets in front, he'll be very difficult to pass. So you got to go with those 2 guys. It's still so hard until somebody really steps up. We saw Heron step up at COTA. Amazing. He rode so well. Does he bring that mentality that he had going into the second race in Texas? Does he bring that mentality with him to VIR? It's a lot different type of track. It's a lot harder to be patient at VIR than it is at COTA. So I got to go with Tony and Cameron again, and then we'll see how that plays out. But I definitely have my eye on a couple of guys, obviously Heron and Gerloff. But which one of these guys on like kind of our privateer guys are going to be on the podium this week? I think that's the bigger question between, like JD and Schultz and those guys. I think they're going to give some of those guys fits.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it as well. So when you look, Greg, at what we did there at in Atlanta, going back real quick and looking at some of the things right now, our championship point standings are Bobby Fong first, Hayden Gillum, PJ Jacobson third, Escalante, Sean Dillon Kelly fifth. And then we've got Aguilar, Bryce Prince, Xavier Zayek, Nick McFadden, and Lucas Silva rounds out our top 10. Now, I think that it's pretty fair to say that you and I went away from there with a lot different perspective of what we can expect now from Supersport going into 2019. Just like 18, we thought JD Beach was going to be a runaway winner. I think Hayden Gillum was the odds-on favorite this year, even though we knew he was going to get some competition, obviously from Bobby and PJ and the rest of the class. But to see Bobby be as dominant as he was in Atlanta really should have come away from there with 2 victories, I feel. What kind of message does that send out to everybody else? What did you gain? What did you gather from that weekend?
I mean, kind of the same thing you did. I was shocked to see the speed of the Suzuki being, how we talk about the age and this and that, and then Yamaha came out with a bike more recently and they have throttle by wire and all that kind of stuff. But I think that the team that Bobby rides for, the M4 X-Star Suzuki team, put a lot of work into the new fuel that we have. And they got the thing working right. And I thought, wow, Bobby is on it. I mean, a couple of years off of 600, I thought he would, kind of lean into it a little bit more than just go grab it like he did. So, and Jason, we've had 2 races, so 6 total podium possibilities, and Bobby's the only one who's double podiumed. Hayden, PJ, Escalante, and Sean Dale and Kelly all have with 1 apiece. And so I'm like, is this going to be the year? But the other thing is not so much Bobby, Jason, as it just looked like Hayden Gillum struggled more than he struggled last year at Road Atlanta. To keep the pace, right? And that's where I'm like sitting there going, what's going on over there on his team? And, that type of thing. So
when you look at that, what you say, Greg, you're 1,000% right. Is this the year for Bobby Fong? Because right now it's shaping up like it could be. We go into a track that he's strong at. Didn't he win his first Supersport race ever on that Ducati here at VIR?
Yes, he did.
He did, right? I remember it being really close. But I think really too, Greg, don't you think that it would have helped him to do the Daytona 200 and getting all those miles on that bike and just getting more? I mean, we know Daytona's different, but just brand familiarity, getting off 1,000, jumping on a 600, getting used to the speed of a 600, getting used to what it doesn't do that 1,000 does do as far as acceleration off corners and getting into turns maybe a little bit harder. I think that Daytona was a great thing for Bobby to go and do that. And Bobby, to me, is the kind of guy where once he kind of gets past a couple of little maybe mental things in his own brain, this guy could go on a winning streak like we've seen other guys do in 600s as well with that team behind him. But
that's something the team has definitely thought about because it's no mystery with racers. You've got to, as a team owner and a crew chief or mechanics, whatever, create a safe space for riders. There are very few riders that can go into it that are so mentally strong, it doesn't matter what affects them. Obviously Matt Mladen comes to mind, Ben Spies comes to mind, but a lot of racers need that support system behind them. It's something that Chris Ulrich talked to me about before, and when he thought about pairing crew chiefs up with riders, and I think Frank Aragaki, the crew chief for Bobby Fong, is the perfect fit for Bobby. If you can keep him on the straight and narrow or keep his mindset right, he is one of the most talented motorcycle racers I've ever seen.
Yes.
Bobby Fong. And the versatility of going back and forth. I mean, look at Garrett Gerloff's a great example. Unbelievably talented motorcycle racer. When he got on a roll on a 600 2 years ago, it was so incredible to watch. And he could have gone to Moto3 or Moto2, sorry, with that speed and I think been in the top 10 right away. But it's taking him an entire season on a superbike to get used to it. Bobby just seems to have this ability to just jump back and forth really quickly with simply the Daytona 200, which, as Jason, you and I know, that's like doing endurance. I mean, that's we've talked about it before in the past, how good endurance racing is for your skill set in riding. So I think Bobby with his talent, I think you're 100% right. If the team can keep him focused, if some luck goes his way, we could be looking at the new champion. But I do think that PJ Jacobsen... Sorry. I didn't mean to jump ahead, but I just think that...
No, but I agree with you. I think that Bobby could be that guy if he can get on a roll. And I think with the speed of that bike, he gets through VIR and from there, he's going to RoadAmerica, which is going to give him a lot of confidence. And we're going to talk about PJ, I know, but you said it when we kind of led into Supersport, Greg, that I'm really curious how the Ridiculous team rebounds after. Wouldn't you say that without question that they kind of seem like the team to beat this year? I think Nick McFadden moved over to the R6. He was excited to get on that bike, being on the Yamaha. And Hayden was the second race. The first race, he just hassled Bobby so well, but Bobby pulled away. And then from that point, it looked like Bobby just made a couple mistakes. Hayden got through, won the race by 3-4 seconds. The second day, though, he was back there in sixth and not even a factor, like wasn't a factor. Then we saw him make a super uncharacteristic mistake. Last corner, running off the track, goes to get on, gives a little too much throttle on the grass, falls, gives him what did he end up 10th or something, didn't he, in the second race? But
Yeah, 6 points. Yep.
But the team itself, amazing, great group of guys. Their effort looks outstanding in our paddock. But I was really shocked at the pace of not just Hayden, but even more so Nick. He just never looked like himself in Atlanta. They could have had some bike problems that we don't know about, that are undisclosed, that maybe they have figured out before they get to VIR. But I think it'll be interesting to see how a team that won so many races last year rebounds back from their disappointment, I would say. Don't you think that there would have been a disappointment for them this year at that track?
Yeah, I think for the bar they set for themselves last season, for sure. I mean, a win is a win. I mean, that's amazing. Yep. I just think race 2 might have had some people scratching their heads, unless again we didn't have a chance to do what we normally do, which is as soon as the race is over on Sunday, I usually go down and talk to some teams before I head out. We didn't have the luxury of doing that because we now have this 1 hour cut down show that we do for TV. But so I don't know. And I've reached out to Hayden and haven't heard back from him this week. I'm sure he's been busy. But, maybe there was just something very simple. Maybe it was just a bad tire.
Hope that's
maybe
the case.
Yeah. And that we're taking one race out of context. And we'll know soon enough. We'll get another couple races in this weekend. Yep. And we all know Hayden is tremendously talented and there's really nothing to it. So as long as there's a bike that works underneath him, he's going to be there in the fight. No question about it. PJ Jacobsen, though, looked to have a really quick turnaround from race 1 to race 2 and the changes they made. And he was just close. He was not in striking distance, but you could tell that, PJ's right there. And with more, every time he turns another lap on this motorcycle is going to get him closer to the front, I think.
I agree. PJ weighs nothing. That's what was so surprising again at the speed of the Suzuki, because PJ had nothing for Bobby going down the back straightaway there and in Atlanta. And he did a good job getting, he was kind of the Hayden Gillum of the first race. He was there kind of pestering Bobby a little bit. And then as soon as Bobby just got relaxed and comfortable and just started hitting his marks, he pulled away quite easily. But PJ got those second place points after a big crash. Remember, he had hurt his hand as well. So he got out of Atlanta with some points. He's been to VIR before, so he knows that place very well. It'll be a track where I think that we'll see I think we're going to see again. I think the racing at VIR is going to be amazing. We're going to see 5 or 6 people. I think our biggest question, we talked about those first 3, who's going to step up this weekend? I finally got to meet Sean Dillon Kelly. Finally got to meet him, Greg. I don't know if I told you, but at COTA, I got to meet him. And what, guys, as good as he is on the track, he's just as great off it. Just couldn't be any more polite. Super nice guy. A lot of these tracks he's never been to, but you watch how quick he gets up to speed. I think Richie Escalante is really the guy that we got to mention in 4th right now in the championship. He's a guy where he put it on the podium. He could be very racy, and he's working with Josh Hayes a lot right now. And I think that, just in my opinion, if Richie can kind of calm himself a little bit, and you've heard me say it so many times, ride with less franticness almost, where I think, Greg, that he could be a guy that can run with anybody. I think he can win races. Having Josh in his corner, I think, will be nothing but a bonus. But when you look at everybody, you got to kind of think Escalante to me is the guy that can elevate. We've seen Bryce Prince there before. Bryce wasn't as close in Atlanta as I thought he would be, but maybe a track like VIR might suit him. Jason Aguilar finished 4th in race 2. So we've got some guys there that are willing to step up.
To talk about too, Jay. You have Braden Ort, who just hasn't found it yet in the first 2 races. No big deal.
New Kawasaki.
Kawasaki. Yeah. You have Ashton Yates, who's relatively new to the class. He had a podium last year. I believe it was Road Atlanta, which is his home track. But this track's so close to him as well, a few hours up the street at VIR, that if they can get their stuff sorted, I mean, as you look down the list of competitors that have scored points so far this season, you're going, hey, wait a second. We could have Aguilar. We could have Prince. We
Yep.
could even have Nick McFadden grab his first one if they get some things sorted out. Braden
Yep.
Ort. People that have been on the podium before can do it
Yep.
again. And we could leave VIR with not just 5 people standing on a podium so far. I think we could leave with, in 4 races, having, maybe even 10 different people standing on a podium. And it's what makes Supersport to me so exciting. Not just who's going to win the race, but who else is going to be able to fill those positions.
And when you watch the race, people will say, "Oh, we only had 22 guys on the grid." The problem is the field itself was fast, Greg. Like the field itself, like if you look at it from first back to 10th, 12th, 14th, 15th, it was a pretty fast field. So to get a point, to earn points in this class is definitely going to be hard for a lot of people. We always get the new people jumping in and jumping out. I mean, Benjamin Smith showed tremendous pace at Atlanta. Didn't finish either race, just big mistakes both times out. New R6 for him on the same team he was on last year, but he had pretty big issues. But he'll be another guy that'll factor in. He'll get some points. And you got the likes of, it was great seeing Aaron Graham back. I think he got hurt in Utah last year, and he came back and rode in Atlanta. So you're going to see some new faces, some new guys. I think Supersport's going to be great, great all season. But I think VIR is going to be another place where it's going to be fun to watch.
And the last entry list I saw has 29 entered for Supersport, and that's a pretty thick field at VIR. All right, Jay, let's go ahead and move on to Liqui Moly Junior Cup. What can you say? Rocco Landers right now. The kid went 2 for 2. The first margin of victory was 16, almost 17 seconds, which I think was a record in terms of like margin of victory. I think he was the youngest rider. These are unconfirmed. I haven't really checked it out. I think he was the youngest rider to win a Liqui Moly Junior Cup race at 14 and 2 months old or something like that. Dallas Daniels was in second both times. And then we had 2 other, Dominic Doyle and Sam Lockoff, on the podium as well. But I mean, right now, how can we take our eyes off of Rocco Landers? I mean, he just looks like the kid right now. And I know you've seen him out at Chuckwalla. I know you've had a chance to talk to him since. So let's start our Rocco talk.
First off, I love Rocco. I think he's a good kid. He's young. He's enthusiastic. He's the kid that you see riding around on his bicycle in between sessions, and he's just being a kid, which I think that's tremendous. If you can be at 14 and still be a kid and have fun and have success, I think you've kind of got everything that you need there. He's approachable. He's fun to talk to. He's energetic. I like that all about him. And right now, what he did in Atlanta, I don't really know if we've ever seen before, in the sense that he just came right out.
Never saw the track, right?
Never seen the track, just did the business. And obviously he's got a lot more experience. It's not like he just kind of showed up. He's been riding a lot. Every weekend out here he's riding. Whether it's an AFM race at Buttonwillow, or if he's going to Chuckwalla this last weekend he was on a borrowed R3, and again just ripping out at Chuckwalla to finish off the season, which tells me his race bikes are obviously probably all back east. But as great as he is, and he really is, I think that the bigger question is who's going to step up. Who's going to be the guy or girl that steps up? Can't forget we have Jamie Astudillo in this class as well. I know Jamie and Dallas, they both went testing at trying to find some new suspension settings and things like that. So I know they've been testing a little bit. Don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but yes, I know they were. I was really impressed with Dominic Doyle. Both races, kept his nose clean, third in the points right now. A kid that we saw on KTM 390 Cup, so a couple years ago, I think. So, who's going to be the one though, Greg, that kind of jumps up to go challenge Rocco? Because I think he's going to set pace everywhere, and he's never been to VIR again, so he's going to this track. And you know what he says to me at Chuckwalla the other day? He says, "Jay, I've watched video probably 40 times of VIR, and what he's going to gain from that is he's going to be able to look at the speed of what the riders did on the video, and he's so experienced even at his young age that that'll be relatable to him. So when he goes out and he sees the track, he'll have watched so much video that the speed that he's seeing these guys ride, he'll be able to relate that. So I think when he gets there, he'll be up to speed quickly."
Now, Jason, different scenario slightly of the question I'm getting ready to ask you. Mm-hmm. You grew up the son of a 3-time Superbike champ. Your dad won the first 3 Superbike titles. when they actually introduced the class the first 3 years. Rocco comes. I used to race with his dad. So his dad was also a racer. I don't remember his dad doing AMA Nationals. I know for sure a season I raced when he was racing the VIR National Challenge Series back in 96. For sure, Stoney, his dad, was a podium finisher. I don't know if he won. I really think he won some races. So the question I have for you is, what what was the household like for you growing up, having a racer dad? Do you think it's a help, a hindrance? Is it just Rocco on his own? Is it kind of where he comes from and helping fuel Rocco's passion and desire and skill is his dad's passion for the sport? Like, what do you think?
Well, 14 is too early to tell because right now it's a fun thing for him. And I'm the same way. I believe I've met Stoney before, but when you look at where Stoney has come from, he came from California Superbike School with Dylan and Keith. And so I know he was one of their main guys there at the school. So that that obviously lent itself very well to a place where Rocco could go ride a lot and be around a lot of knowledge people, getting on a track a lot and testing himself and things. The father-son thing for me is like when I was 14 and going to the racetracks with my dad, it was the best times of my life. I mean, all the way up, I don't even know, until I was 20 something, probably 22, 23. The dynamics of a father-son relationship in our sport, I think, change as the kid gets older and starts to develop their own identity. I think right now at 14 years old, Rocco is a kid. And from what I can see, Stoney's done an incredible job of letting him be a kid, it was one of the biggest things I did with Alex Dumas was when we were at 11, 12, 13 years old, when we were at the racetrack and we were there to work on his riding, I just needed that 20 or 30-minute session with him and 2-3 minutes after. And then it's like, Alex, go toss a ball around, go ride your skateboard, go ride your bicycle, go enjoy yourself. It wasn't like so regimented that it's like, hey, we're at the racetrack and this is all we're focusing on. And what it looks like to me,
trying to give a 14-year-old a job.
correct. And that's what it kind of looks to me that Stoney and Rocco's kind of handlers have done with him, just let him go off and do some of the things. It really benefits a kid like Rocco to go around and ride his bicycle and meet people that maybe he wouldn't meet if he was just stuffed underneath his tent or in his truck or RV or wherever he's hangs out in between races. He's being able to go out there and show his personality and show who he is and what he's about. And I think that lends himself really, really well to being kind of a young prodigy. I like that about it. And I think that Stoney's done a really good job. And I could be guessworking here, but that's what it seems to me that his dad has allowed him to do, which I think is really healthy for him.
All right, so there you go. In the Liquen Junior Cup class, I think Jason and I are saying you want to check out number 97, Rocco Landers, and his progress for the rest of the season, and who in this class is going to be able to step up and race with him, because he set himself up early as the benchmark of the class at this point.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I think that when you look at him, he is definitely going to be the guy. And make sure that if you're at any of our races to go watch those races, because you really are looking at the future of what our series can be. And that was really the reason why our guys that started this, Wayne and Chuck and all them, they were wanting to give these kids a place to go. Greg, let's start now. Let's talk about a little bit about the Stock 1000 class in Atlanta. Last year when we looked at the Stock 1000 class and we looked at the rundown, really there was two players that came out of it. It was Andrew Lee, Travis Wyman. As the year progressed, we started to see a few more people dip their toes into the series. And I think what it did is I think a lot of people looked at the championship last year, stood back and thought, well, this might be a good place for me. And, people like Stefano Mesa, people like Dustin Dominguez, that we saw Dustin ride a couple of races last year. And then even somebody like Miles Thornton, who I believe is a tremendous rider, didn't get to finish Atlanta, but he's a big kid. I think him being on 1,000, we saw him put some good 600 races in last year, but I think him being on 1,000 will benefit him. But when we got to the end of Sunday, it was the same guy winning. Andrew Lee got into a pretty good battle with Michael Gilbert. Stefano Mesa led early in that race. And Andrew just kind of hounded Michael the whole time while they were out there, ripping around together. And on the last lap, Andrew did what a lot of people have done at Road Atlanta. He really wasn't able to get close enough to Michael going into the last lap to do anything down through the S's and this and that. Was very patient, drafted down the back straightaway, waited very late to make a pass into turn 10. He went on to win the race ahead of Michael Gilbert. Stefano Mesa was third. Travis Wyman, Chad Lewin rounding out your top 5. Then it was Dominguez, Rhett Norman, Bradley Ward, California guy, English guy actually, that does a lot of racing out here. Corey Helfrin, John Dunham round out your top 10. Of course, we have Melissa there too. She ended up 11th. But when you look at it, I think it was Andrew's way of saying, okay, we got all these people here. Let's not forget who's champ.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what I got from it. I enjoyed the race, watching that race. I thought that Andrew how old is Andrew Lee, by the way? Like 19?
I think he's still got a teen in his name. Yeah, I think he's 19, 18. I think
he's 19, and I just thought it was so smart of him to do what he did. I don't think he really thought he had the pace to get away from Gilbert. And Gilbert was riding well, really well. But then he started to slow the pace there at the end. In passing, I saw Gilbert, and I think he said something about arm pump or something. Or he got a little bit tight in the arms. But I thought it was a great race. And I think that what we saw at Road Atlanta isn't necessarily what we're going to see in Stock 1000 as the year rolls on. What I mean is we saw Lee and Gilbert get away. I just think that you're going to see, as more races get under people's belts and they start to figure out their 2019 equipment, I think we might see it packed up in the top, and as we get more people pop in and out. But I thought it was a really good race. The margin of victory was, they were coming across the line basically together. But Jason, I haven't had a chance to talk to Andrew Lee. I saw on social media, it's been a week ago or something, or
about 2 weeks ago now. Yeah.
2 weekends ago, where he crashed and messed his hand up. I mean, have you heard about him? Is he going to come to VIR and race? Like, what's the story?
Well, originally when it happened, when I got the original text message from him, he was racing AFM the same weekend that we were at COTA. So they were doing round 2 of AFM at Buttonwillow. And in qualifying on Saturday, he fell over, said it was an absolutely nothing crash, but it was just enough to where it got his finger stuck underneath the bike and ground his pinky finger away pretty badly, Greg. And so he was really worried about it. He ended up having surgery on the finger more. It wasn't that he had broke anything. It wasn't even the fact that he didn't go through any tendons, but you could see all the way down. The photo he sent me was pretty graphic. You could see the joint of his fingers, and they were a little bit worried about getting the thing sewed up and making it to where he could ride. I know he's doing a lot better now, which is great. And Andrew's a kid that doesn't throw it down the road a lot. Last year, he won the CVMA number 1, AFM number 1, went to Suzuka, won MotoAmerica championship. He put a lot of miles on a bike and didn't tip off much. So it was a bit unfortunate. He's kind of part of the new, Graves being with Kawasaki. So he's really looking at this year like a big year to prove himself, step forward, and try to get on a superbike moving on. He went out and got Franklin Armory, which is a manufacturer of firearms. He went and got them as an outside industry sponsor. So
awesome.
He's put a lot into this season, and he will be at VIR, which is good. Talking to him yesterday, he's like, I can actually move my finger just a little bit, but it's the pinky finger of the non-throttle hand, so left hand. So it shouldn't be too big of a deal.
So it shouldn't be too big of a deal.
Right.
All right. I want your opinion on Chad Lewin. I know that Chad jumped in at Utah last year and came right out of the box and won a race, and in this race he finishes 5th. Do we know if Chad Lewin's going to be doing the entire season? I've heard some things about bike changes for him and so on and so forth. What are you hearing around the water cooler about Chad?
Yeah, no, I think he's going to be there. He's with Tuned. He went from Cowie to Yamaha. We saw him win a race last year at Utah, wasn't it?
Right? Yeah. Yep.
And it's just, I think with Chad, it's, he's just set up stuff. I mean, he messes with the bike a lot, and I think that if he's got some good people around him, if he can get on, we know that he can run up at the front with these guys. He went from the Cowie to the Yamaha really late because he was going to try to race the Kawasaki this year, but then he went back to the Yamaha. So he really didn't get any time on that bike, even though it was the same as last year's, I believe, just a newer model before Atlanta. And I know he has now got himself kind of a bike that he rides out here in California as well, just based off of looking at some social media. He has a bike that he rides out here. But, I think he'll be a guy that can for sure be there. Travis Wyman is another guy that was a little bit off the leaders in Atlanta. So is he going to get back up to the front with Andrew? Because like really last year, those two guys were the guys. We saw a couple people duck their nose in there with them, but those were the two guys that everybody was trying to beat last year. So yeah, we said it earlier. I said it earlier. Miles Thornton, I think he ran the fastest lap of the race. If not, it was very, very close thereabouts. He got a pretty good start. I actually watched the race yesterday. He got a pretty good start. Something happened to him in between turn 6 and 7 on the first lap. He dropped back, was coming through, ended up tipping off. So
a lot of talent in stock thousand.
Tons.
And the idea behind the class is that gap between super sport and superbike for riders to have a not as much money into the bike. It's a class, like they say, it is stock 1000. It's as close to stock as you can get it on a race bike. And I think it's a great class. It's a lot of fun to watch. That race will happen Sunday at 4:45 p.m. So if you're visiting VIR, which I really hope you are, make sure you make plans to stick around and watch that race. That's a 14-lap affair. Now, Jason, the race before that one is Twins Cup. And Twins Cup, well, in terms of like a full field, I mean, we had 37 in the first race, where at last check 39 in the entries for the VIR race. But what we saw was just a straight up spanking. We saw Michael Barnes go for the double because although Stock 1000 had a single race at Road Atlanta, Twins Cup had a double race this weekend because of the short they're going to have. But they go back and forth. So some weekends Stock 1000 has 2 races. Some weekends Twins Cup does. This weekend they both have a single race. But Michael Barnes handily on a Ducati won it over, well, in terms of the points, he's 14 points over Chris Parrish, who is our points leader. Curtis Murray's in second. Drake Beecham is fourth. Dumas, who put on a magnificent performance, I believe, on a stock motor, in fifth. So, I mean, is anyone going to stop the Michael Barnes train?
Oh man, it just depends. I think that we're not. Is he going to be there? That's the big thing, because I'm not sure if we know.
It's a good question.
You kind of said he wasn't. I'm sure he's going to be there. I can't imagine going away from Atlanta, and especially since this race is on the East Coast, I definitely see Michael being there. Greg, I haven't looked at the entry list. You might have that. I haven't actually looked at it yet. So when
What's
you look
Michael's
at
number 111.
Yep. So when you look at what happened there, it's experience, isn't it? And I'll be honest with you. When we looked at this class last year, everybody kind of looked at the Twins class as a class of, why does MotoAmerica want to run this class? There was some idea that, there were a couple rounds where he just had no entries hardly at all. So when you start looking at some of the guys, I was really impressed with like Chris Parrish, who is obviously our defending champion, stepping up. I mean, Chris Turner, he had pole and had bodywork flying off his bike for both rounds. Super frustrating round for him. I remember just watching the race, you and I watching it. I was so frustrated for the guy because you travel all that way
in a row.
Two races in a row, and Chris's bodywork's flying off. But I mean,
that's almost as bad as Tomac crashing in the exact same spot in the same race twice.
almost as bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tomac was able to get through the races at least, and I mean, bodywork is one of those things that was just frustrating to see. It had to be really frustrating for Chris, obviously Turner. So he walks out of there with no points after putting it on pole. But the kind of the guys that really proved themselves last year, there was a lot of buildup in this race that we're going to see some new people, and I think that the jump from Liqui to 600 is big for some people. So like we see Drake Beecham, we see Alex Dumas, we see Joe Blasius. There are some people that have gone from Liqui, jumped into this Twins Cup. I think a lot of people thought, well, that's going to be it. These younger guys are going to come in and do the business. But really at the end of the day, it was the old guard, Michael Barnes and Chris Parrish and Tigert and Murray and of course Chris Turner showing how fast he could be. There was a lot of the guys from last year that really stepped up and said, wait a minute, all you little young guys, take a seat. You just follow us a little bit. You're going to still be learning a lot. And there's a lot of diversity in this class, and I like that.
And looking at the latest entry list that I have, which is just a few days old, there could be some more people on it entered. No championship points leader, Michael Barnes.
Yeah, so he might not be there. Michael's in a stage of his life where it's, unless he's going to be paid to ride a motorcycle, which I respect it. There's no sense in him
100%.
just going up there and putting his, he's risked enough of his life over the years, but that doesn't mean he's not going to show up. I don't know what post-entry stuff is like with this with MotoAmerica. I can't imagine them saying, "Oh, nope, you can't ride." So when you look at it, will Barney be there? He might not be a season entry. He might not be a long, like, for the whole season, but it sure is hard to imagine leading a championship and just not riding it. When you look down the list, maybe look to see if there's any other quarterly entry racing guys, because maybe somebody else is on that bike this week. Don't know. But anyways, something to look forward to. But the twins class to me is definitely something that I want to watch now. It will lend itself to some good racing as well. And we've got everything from really like old SV650s that are going to be down quite a bit on power, and we've got new SV650s. Like, I got to just look at Chris Parrish's bike a little bit, and it's beautiful. Like, they've done a really nice job.
They did a great job on the bodywork, didn't he? Yeah, he
really
told me the story
really
of building that bodywork, and he wanted to step it up this year, and it looks good. It's kind of Moto 2-ish, he kind of designed it that way, and he does a great job with that. Yeah,
because that's what a defending champion does. They want to make it to where their class is looked at as just as good as everything else. And I think a lot of that goes by your appearance. And he operates his whole effort out of a van, but his equipment looks nice. Obviously he's a very accomplished guy as our defending champion. And at the end of the day, he came out of there second in points. I got to think that it was a good weekend for him as far as that goes. And I was very well impressed by the look of his effort and his results of the first weekend.
Yeah, it was a great job. All right, so that'll do it for this podcast, JP. So we're talking about VIR this weekend, but we also want to let you know more about the MotoAmerica calendar, because we still have 7 rounds after VIR. June 2nd, we're going to be at Roadrace in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Love, love, love that place. Can't wait to get back to Wisconsin. And then on June 16th weekend, we will be at Utah, at the Utah Motorsports Campus. Then we go to WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, July 14th with World Superbike. Make plans for that. August 11th, we're up in Northern California at Sonoma Raceway, another great track. And hopefully for those people that are allergy sufferers, going in August is going to be a good time to go. And then just a couple weeks after that, we're at Pit Race, just outside of Pittsburgh. That's August 25th. September 8th, we're at New Jersey Motorsports Park in Millville, New Jersey. Hopefully not the season opener for NFL, and I'll have to go to a stupid Eagles game again with Jason.
Looking forward to that.
Then September 22nd, we wrap the season up at Barber Motorsports Park near Birmingham, Alabama. So that is our schedule. Make sure you join us there. And we certainly hope to see you at Virginia International Raceway. Just a couple hours drive if you're in New England, or if you're down in Alabama and Georgia, come on up to VIR. It's right on the North Carolina-Virginia border, closer to the eastern part of the state. Spectacular racetrack. They're going to have all that neato stuff that MotoAmerica has all year, the fun and games and all kinds of entertainment, which will be interesting because there's going to be bikes on track nonstop Saturday and Sunday. Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this thing up, JP?
Nope. Looking forward to getting down to VIR, getting round 3 started, and now it really will, man, our season will fly by. I can't believe we're already in May, and hopefully the weather's good at VIR. I look forward to seeing you, G-Dub, and all the fans out there. It's going to be good.
You too. And folks, on our regular podcast, which posts up on Wednesday, we're going to be talking to JD Beach about his win in American Flat Track, and we're going to have MotoGP wildcard rider for Aprilia, Bradley Smith, will be checking in with us. So make sure you check out that one and tell all your friends about our podcast. Have them download it. Have a conversation about it. We certainly enjoy you listening. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.